Tell me when you're ready, Eric.
Go ahead, Ken.
Good. Excuse me. I would like to call the January 23rd, 2023 Upper County Planning Commission Board of Adjustment meeting to order. We have two items before we start with the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment. I need to read the meeting procedure, and then we'll do election of officers. I think the procedure's up on the screen. All persons in attendance at the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment, PCBOA, meetings are expected to comply with the following meeting procedure. Thank you in advance for helping make this a manageable meeting. Copies of the agenda item materials are available for public viewing on the table located at the back of the meeting room. These materials are not to leave the table so that others in attendance may also view them. Please turn your phones to vibrate or off during the meeting and conduct any sidebar conversations outside the meeting room. Interruption or other interference with the orderly conduct of the board meeting will not be allowed. Defamatory or abusive marks are always out of order, and disruptive persons will be removed from the meeting. The chair may terminate a speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, the speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks. Written material concerning agenda items must be submitted to the Environmental Services Department by 3:30 p.m. on the Wednesday immediately prior to the meeting date. Written materials will not be accepted after this deadline or at the meeting because the board will not have sufficient time to review them prior to the meeting. Such materials must state the agenda item for which it is being submitted and the name and address of the submitting party. The Planning Commission business is conducted first, followed by Board of Adjustment business. The chair will call the meeting to order and explain the meeting procedure. The chair will read each agenda item into the record and ask the applicants to come forward to the presenter's table, state his or her names and addresses for the record, and explain their request. The board will then discuss the agenda item with the applicant. The chair will then ask for public comment on the agenda item. To facilitate an orderly, efficient meeting, there is a 3-minute speaking time limit per speaker per agenda item unless the chair allows the speaker additional time. The chair may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, the speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks. When the chair recognizes a speaker, he may approach the audience podium and microphone, state his or her name and address for the record, and write such on the speaker's log, and then share his or her comments. The audience podium microphone must be used by the recognized speaker because the meeting is being recorded. A member of the public may not donate his or her speaking time to another speaker. A speaker should state his or her comments and address the issue, not the applicants. All comments are to be directed toward the board. Please do not repeat comments already made by previous speakers. The chair reserves the right to ask a group with similar comments to appoint a spokesperson. If written comments have been submitted to the board, please do not read them aloud during the meeting, as they are already part of the record and copies thereof have been given to the board. After everyone wanting to speak on an agenda item has done so, the chair will close the public comment period on the agenda item, and no further public comment will be taken after that point. The chair will give the applicant an opportunity to address the issue to raise during public comment. The board will then continue its discussion on the agenda item, and the chair will enter a motion on it. The board may make a motion to pass, deny, or table the item. Once a motion is made and seconded, the board will develop findings of fact for conditional use permit and variance applications, and then vote on the motion. Once a vote is taken on an agenda item, the board will move on to the next agenda item. Meetings commence at 6 p.m. and continue until all agenda items have been heard, or until 10 p.m. No new agenda items shall be considered after 9:45. The board may, at its discretion, continue an item that is on the floor at 10 p.m. Any remaining agenda items shall be continued to another day, time, preferably the immediately following Tuesday at 6 p.m., and no further public notice will be provided for such a meeting continuation. The board, through the chair, may modify these procedures prior to a meeting or an agenda item. With that, move to the first agenda item, which is election of officers, which the board is required to do on an annual basis at each meeting, on the first meeting of the year. So I'll open the floor to the board for nominations for officers. And I'll start by nominating Mark Peterson as chair for 2023.
This is Veronica. I second the motion.
Okay. Any other input? Okay, we'll call the vote. Mark, how do you vote?
This is Mark, I vote aye.
Veronica?
This is Veronica. I vote aye.
This is Ken. I will vote aye. Next is nominations for vice chair.
This is Veronica. I make a motion to nominate Ken for vice chair.
And this is Mark, I'll second that motion.
Any other nominations? Close nominations. How do you vote, Mark?
This is Mark, I vote aye.
Veronica?
Veronica. I vote aye.
This is Ken. I vote aye. Now I'll open the floor for nominations for secretary. I will nominate Veronica.
And this is Mark, I'll second that.
Any other nominations? I'm gonna nominate one of the people not here. If you want.
It's okay.
Okay, we'll close nominations for secretary. How do you vote, Mark?
This is Mark, I vote aye.
Veronica?
This is Veronica. I vote aye.
Reluctantly. And this is Ken. I'll vote aye. So that being done, I now will turn the meeting over to Mark Peterson, who is the chair for 2023.
Okay, I guess we'll first start with the Planning Commission, and we have no old business and no new business, so no minutes to approve, and we can move on to the Board of Adjustment and the approval of minutes for the December 19th, 2022 meeting. Anybody have any comments on the minutes for December meeting?
No.
Anybody ready to make a motion?
This is Veronica. I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
This is Ken, I'll second it.
Okay, we have Veronica making a motion to approve, Ken seconding that. Ken, how do you vote?
I approve. Aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica. I vote aye.
Okay, and this is Mark. I vote aye. Meeting minutes from December are approved. And we will now move on to our first variance application, new business. It's variance application 42-V-22 by Gerald Hamm. The west one half of the west one half of the northeast 1/4 and the east one half of the northwest 1/4, section 18, Township 139, range 32, Badoura Township, parcels 03.18.00200 and 03.18.00300. Applicant is requesting a variance from section 4, subdivision A.1.B.1 of the subdivision ordinance for a proposed tract that will not comply with the 300-foot minimum lot width requirement. Do we have the applicant here? Could you come up to the table and give us your name and permanent address and what you're wanting to do?
So my name is Missy Buck, and our permanent address is 30078 150th Street, Akeley. And we're proposing the width of an access road up to our irrigation pivot. It's less than the 300 feet, so we're requesting a variance to be able to get an approach from the highway to go up to that pivot for access.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board on the applicant's application here?
No,
No?
I think it's pretty clear.
Okay. We don't have any questions right now. I'm just going to open for public comment.
Okay.
And seeing that there's none, we'll close that for public comment. Is anybody ready to make a motion on this?
This is Veronica. I do have a couple statements, supporting statements. So we have received public comment from MnDOT, and there are no objections to the request for the approach location on the proposed parcel B. And I feel the same. During the lot views, I did make note of the coniferous trees from the neighboring property bordering the parcel B, and I concur with MnDOT, as I do not have any issues with that placement. I imagine farming equipment will be entering and exiting carefully to avoid the overhead power lines, because I did notice the overhead power lines, so you have to kind of slow down anyhow to get in and out of there, so I don't foresee any issues with the approach. It's a reasonable request to desire the outright access to the farmland field rather than an easement for the future owners who could potentially contest such an easement or attempt to block it or disrupt it. So I'm in favor of the application. That is all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Ken, any comments?
Just a couple of comments. It's pretty clear, and it all makes sense and reasonable. Do you think we should consider any condition that because of the narrow access, that it can only be used for ag production, forest, recreation, and not residential in the future because of the small access? And the other thing is it appropriate for us to put a condition in that MnDOT must permit the access from Highway 87? I'm thinking of both of those as possible conditions. I don't know what my colleagues think.
This is Veronica. I can make a comment to Ken's. I did contact the Environmental Services Office Department, and the said property having a subdivision variance itself will be flagged in the recorder's office. And if any future if the ownership changes hand in the future, it's going to be noticed right away. So, I mean, if this gets approved, they're outside of shoreline and it's out of our hands.
So any change in usage would have to come for variance or permit?
Correct. That is to my knowledge. Is that correct, Eric? for the lot width area.
Eric speaking, not, it wouldn't require a subsequent variance if the use was to change because we don't have countywide zoning, but if they propose something that would affect the subdivision ordinance, that would require going through another variance.
Okay. And how about the permit from the highway department to modify the access level? Is that necessary, or would that just be?
I don't find it necessary based on, I didn't get the impression from MnDOT's comment letter that they really had any major concerns, and if they would find any reason not to issue it, they most certainly wouldn't. I don't think MnDOT's bashful that way, so
Okay.
I'm not worried about needing a condition to reinforce that.
Okay. So you're good at those?
You made the motion?
Nobody's made a motion
Oh,
yet.
yeah.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep, I'm gonna make the motion that we approve this application and accept the staff's findings of facts on it.
I'll second that. This is Ken.
Okay, then Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
Veronica, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye. Your motion's passed. Your application should receive a letter in the mail from Environmental Services regarding this application. So
Okay,
you're
thank
all
you very
set.
much.
You're welcome. Okay, our next variance application, 43-V-22 by Joel and Kristen Schneeberger. This is part of Lot 11, Block 2, Akeley Park Gardens, Section 28, Township 141, Range 32, Akeley City on 11th Crow Wing Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 29.38.01200. Applicants are requesting a variance from Section 502.2 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance for a proposed lakeward addition and expansion of a lakeside deck located within the 100-foot ordinary high water mark structure setback. Do we have the applicant here? Okay, want to come up to the table here, give us your permanent address, name, and what you're wanting to do here.
Thank you. My name is Joel Schneeberger. My permanent address is 3577 50th Street South in Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
I'm making the request. The current deck is in dire need of replacement. I don't think that it would meet the current codes for safety. The current deck is 6 feet out from the home, which was approved, based on when it was built. My request is to add an additional 4 feet to that deck. That would be a green treat. It would be still allowing water to pass through, and just to create more functional space on the deck.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do you have any questions?
I think I'll wait till follow-up discussion. I don't have any more.
Okay, well, in my opinion, I was out looking at this is Mark, by the way, when we took a look at your deck, and it seems pretty self-explanatory to me. I can tell you that, in my own opinion, I'm in favor of allowing you to have this expansion. I don't think there'd be any detriment by doing what you're doing, any change in water runoff or anything like that, so I'm not concerned about that as far as the lake. Do we have any views, Eric, though? I know we talked a little bit about the vegetation in the yard going down to the lake. Anything that we can, pictures that we can show there? We weren't able to see anything when we were out there because of snow cover.
Yeah, I can see if the oblique imagery of the shoreline would
Okay.
offer you any value. If it wants to load.
This is Veronica speaking, if you don't mind, while he's looking for the for the imagery. I do have a couple comments, which are very similar to what Mark is requesting during the lot views, that with the snow cover conditions, I couldn't tell exactly where the stormwater led to either, other than towards the lake due to the topography. Can you tell me if there's any erosion issues? I noticed only gutters on one side of the house.
Correct.
So,
On the other side of the house where there's no gutter, there installed is like concrete block. So where the water comes off of the roof on that side, it goes right onto concrete, the block, and that was there when I moved in. So I haven't seen like any like
Trails,
rivers,
right, yeah.
so to speak. Yes. The water running off from the gutters, it comes off in the concrete, but it seems to disperse.
I did notice the guttering on the other side where you're proposing to have the stair landing and such.
Yes.
You do have it directed to go, well, it is currently, not necessarily you, from the previous owners, the current direction is straight towards the lake. So the, possible condition that I might throw out there would be to direct it away from the lake, just towards that way. Or if you'd even be open to putting some gutters on the other side also, just to
Okay.
match it up and shoot them both off instead of down.
Sure. I was thinking about this. Is there any benefit to, like around landscaping on a typical home where you have it drain down into the ground and have those drain boxes? Does that impact anything?
Yeah, I believe most people are in favor of those rain catches.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about this later, but clearly, what they wanna do with the deck is very appropriate, reasonable, but given the width of the lot, it's pretty clear that whether you have gutters or no gutters, most of your rainwater's running to the lake. And given the width of the lake, the lot, I see no opportunity to divert it or anything like that. And so I've been thinking that if we could, the other thing, the pictures show basically straight lawn, fairly well cut. So I've been trying to think about what we could do to maybe do some buffer along the shoreline to mitigate what you want to do with the deck. I have some thoughts. Unfortunately, the snow and the snow cover makes it almost impossible to figure out what to do. I don't know, Eric, can you pull up
Yeah, this one, but that doesn't.
anything, the shoreline? No, I can see that. It's very clear that there's a little bit of grass, but there's not I'm more concerned about what's right at the lake.
Yeah, on the screen right now, Ken, is our software that provides the oblique imagery, and for whatever reason, it's not
Cooperate.
right.
Okay.
So,
So we don't really have
Here was
anything.
my thinking. He's got 75 feet. He's allowed a 15 by 20 rec area by the lake. It doesn't have to be buffered or anything like that. What I could see there that day, if I look at the lake from the house, on the left side, there appears to be some sizable trees, at least a line of them, but I can't tell whether there's any berm to the lake or whatever. And so that seems like, if I could see it in the summertime, would probably provide some level of buffer. So then I look at the other side, it does not look nearly as protective of the lake. And so I was thinking that, and I think I could explain what I would like to see done, but it's gonna be up to the rest of the board to do it, to see some buffer zone on the right side of your property as it faces the lake.
Okay.
And the reason I want Eric to pull it up, I was trying to get a feel for how much that may. I'm guessing it's about 30 feet from your
Okay.
proper line into where you might have your rec area, where you have your dock pulled up and stuff.
Okay.
And then that other buffer area. And I was going to propose that there be a buffer zone placed 30 feet plus or minus on the right-hand side. And
Okay.
what I envisioned was something maybe about 15, 16 feet deep
Okay.
from the lake. First 10 feet, no mow, and the trees that are there, and then about a 6-foot, I'll call buffer tray, which would be on the right-hand side there, yes. And then you're gonna say, well, what should I plant, what should I plant? Well, Soil and Water Conservation District has these kits,
Okay,
I'll call them, of vegetation that you could buy. And they come in kits that will cover about 36 square feet.
okay,
And there's, I don't know, 35 or 36 plants in it. And some of them are, flowers and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I figure if you had like 5 kits, you could do a 6-foot wide true buffer, and it would be pretty. I have one similar to it.
Yeah.
You get some nice flowers that don't grow too high. People worry about, they can't see anything in the lake. And so I know that's a lot of discussion, but I do think the situation could use a buffer like that, because I don't see any other way, short of making a rain garden, a big.
I'm not familiar with that
A
term.
big depression in your lawn,
Oh.
and let all the water and stuff go into it. Your lot just isn't conducive to that, so.
Okay.
I know that's a lot of words, but basically, I could say, hey, approximately 30 feet plus or minus, 6 foot wide with these kits, and then 10 feet from there to the lake, which you already have a tree line and stuff like that, I think would be a good mitigation for what he's proposing. Because the deck makes sense, but I just couldn't see, I realize the snow, I couldn't see any other way to divert the water any place, maybe onto your neighbors or somebody, or anything like that. And so, and it's pretty clear to specify. You can buy these kits. You'd have to go to SWCD. I have a copy of the brochure that lists them, but they could tell you. But there are 36
Okay.
plants, cover 36 square feet. So if it's 30 feet, then there would be 5 sets of that. You'd have to dig up the grass and you'd have to put it in. And I think it would be pretty, and it would be protective of the lake. And so
Okay.
it's up to my colleagues if they want to go to that extent for this. I think it's a good trade-off, so.
This is Mark Ken. I'd be in favor of that. I'm just wondering, would you be willing to spell that out in a condition that we can, so that?
I think I could, yeah,
You could? Okay.
Okay.
Veronica?
if I could read my writing here.
Okay, okay. So before we do that, I'm gonna open for public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Would you be ready to make a motion then, Ken?
I guess I could,
Questions, Veronica?
I just have one more comment
Okay.
that I agree with Ken, and if the applicant is open to some of the condition that he was proposing for that no buffer, or that vegetative buffer zone and on that side of the property. I just want to say that the request is modest and the outcome is in a reasonable size. And with that, the 7-foot addition on that northeast corner doesn't go any closer to the lake, so that's again a positive thing. So I am in favor of that with the condition.
okay.
Okay.
Then I would make a motion to accept the variance request with the following condition. First point of the condition is that the numbers, the width of the buffer zone could be adjusted by environmental services if, when there's view of the spring thaw, to look at the vegetation, maybe you can't do 30, it might be 25 or whatever. But here's what I would suggest. It's a 16-foot buffer from the ordinary high water mark back towards the cabin, 16 foot. The first 10 feet should be a no-mow natural vegetation, which includes the current trees that are there. There will be a 6-foot by 30-foot bed that would be filled with SWCD's rain garden lakeshore plant kits. Each kit covers about 36 square feet, so approximately 5 kits would be required.
That's your- That's it?
So that, and that's clearly defines what the vegetation should be, where it should be,
Right.
and so on. So if you're willing to accept those conditions, I think I would add that we will accept the findings of fact, except that I'd like to add to the, number one is the variance in harmony with the general purpose and intent of official controls. Could add that the owner has agreed to install a vegetation buffer, which is spelled out in the conditions, which is a reasonable mitigation for enlarging the deck and its aesthetic impact.
Okay, this is Veronica. I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken to accept this variance with the conditions he's enumerated, and a second by Veronica. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
Veronica, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye. Your motion is passed.
I probably should add, Eric, is that sufficient definition for you in terms of what I specified for the buffer for environmental services?
I've got, excuse me, a maximum of 30 feet wide along the shore, open to staff determination, final say once we can see things snow-free. 16 feet deep from the ordinary high water mark. The first 10 feet is a no-mow vegetation area. And then 6 feet deep bed making up the balance that's to be planted to SWCD rain garden kits, approximately 5
Okay.
kits required.
Yeah, yeah, that's, okay,
Is
that's
the-
perfect.
The first 10 feet landward or along?
First 10 feet. Say that again, Eric.
How is, when you say the first 10 feet, I'm sorry, I was trying to
Oh,
get the software.
the first 10 feet is natural vegetation as it exists. The next 6 feet in width, I guess I'll call that width, by 30 feet long, to be filled with SWCD shoreland vegetation kits.
Yep, thank you. I got that part. What I don't know is what the starting point is.
Oh, the right property line. It would be the northeast, if I face the lake, you're right, that corner is northeast, right? No,
Facing the lake, correct. Yep,
I'm facing the lake.
Yep, that's
So it's
northeast
the property
property
line on
line.
the northeast corner, 30 feet.
And he wants to know what your first 10 feet is from the lake towards the house, landward is your first 10 feet?
Yeah, from the ordinary high water mark, landward towards the cabin is the first 10 feet, and the next 6 feet is there. Okay,
Okay.
Thank you. That was the clarification I was
okay.
needing.
yeah.
That's what my drawing shows here.
Okay, I think we've got your
Okay.
motion passed. You're all set to go. You can speak with Environmental Services on any questions you might have, and
Okay.
you'll receive a communication from them regarding this
Perfect.
application.
Thank you. I think it's a great
Thank you.
idea. We'll enjoy the flowers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
They have these. I didn't know those existed. Lakeshore blanket.
Oh, yeah. I should know that. Okay, moving on, our next variance application, 44-V-22 by Crooked Pines LLC, part of Government Lot 9, Section 17, Township 141, Range 33, Mantrap Township on West Crooked Lake, a natural environment lake, parcel 20.17.00110. Applicant is requesting an after-the-fact variance from Section 701 and 1012 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance, and to amend variance 37-V-18. Request involves expansion of a non-conforming use, making the existing dwelling unit density non-conformity more non-conforming, and conversion of a structure authorized as an accessory structure to a dwelling unit. And I see we have the applicant up here, so if you could give us your name and permanent address, and then tell us what you're wanting to do.
Yep. Tom Sywick, 2810 Grand Street Northeast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm up here to look at the solution for the garage, lodge, whatever you want to call it, the building in question. We originally wanted that building, and we applied for it for a personal use entertaining / storage area, as the variance says, back in 2018. And upon an inspection from last year's variance, the county take it as a violation of that variance. And so we're looking at what to do with that. What's we found out from the county, we had options, what to do. We looked at some different options. One question was the septic system. If we decided to add that building as living space, would the septic allow that? And it appears that it will. So based on that information, we thought, well, maybe we should just ask for it to be a living space, as requested by the county, that there needs to be mitigation or offsetting, what's the word I always, the dwelling density or dwelling square footage or whatever, that would be increasing a non-conforming use. And so to offset that, we're looking at adding 792 square feet of living space and offset it with 1,200 square feet of other living space that we will remove.
Okay.
That's the basic gist of this meeting.
Okay. Questions or comments by the board?
I have a question, I think, for Eric. Clearly, a couple of the issues, big issues with this variance request is density of cabins and then the appropriate septic system. And there's proposals for each cabin, a number of people and so on. If the lodge just stayed but had no living quarters, bedrooms and so on, it was just the lodge, and if it's tied into the septic system that they say it is there any additional water usage that has to be controlled or specified? From what I can read, you say, hey, 1,200 gallons per day is what's allowed with the holding tanks and septic system. And then that was parceled out in the application of so many bedrooms or so many people per cabin. If there were no living quarters, no sleeping quarters, no bedrooms, if you will, in the lodge, and it were just a lodge, a recreation area where some of the campground people or whoever during a rainy day could sit there and watch TV or have a little buffet or something, would you have to include a certain amount of water usage from it in that septic system, or is it benign compared to the rest? Or how would you measure it, or how would you specify it?
Yeah, Eric speaking, you would still need basic information for septic sizing, so it's got a bathroom. Assuming that bathroom would be made available to the public, there'd be some modest gallons per day flow that you would design for that public restroom.
Okay.
And then other considerations would be if there's any type of light food prep that might happen that could influence sizing as far as like dishes that might need to be done, that sort of thing. But it should be a smaller flow than what is proposed in the application with the,
So
I think, 4
you'd
occupants.
allocate it, and there's a standard sort of number that goes with a public restroom, like 50 gallons or 100 or whatever it may be. So that would have to be taken into account. And then the rest, if there's leftover, could be reapplied to the other 6 cabins then, if that were,
potentially, yes.
yeah. Okay. My question.
Okay, this is Veronica speaking. I have a couple questions, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, before
ahead.
you open public comment. Okay, one of the questions is during lot views, you mentioned constructing the house. Will you be constructing the house that you were granted in October of 2018? You still planning on constructing that?
Yes.
What are the plans for the area above the garage? The
The side above,
right above the big doors,
like the third floor, we might say, because it's way up there.
yeah, the one that you can only enter from the garage side.
That's gonna be a game room.
A game room, okay. And then what are your plans for the lofted area at the top of the stairs?
Just to sit and watch TV or read a book.
Okay. And you mentioned during lot views that your plans for the lofted area above the living room, can you go into some detail on those plans for
Yeah,
me
we
for
wanted
the
to reduce
record?
the amount of square footage that we're using for living space. So we would remove the floorboards from that area. There's a kind of timber structure that holds it up that I'd prefer not to take down just because the way it's bolted all into the walls and everything, it would be kind of a unsightly situation. And I thought it would look kind of cool, which is beams up there. I would replace the doorway that's going from the bedroom into that loft, and I would take that off, and I would put like a full glass door probably and screw it shut so that it would let light into the room without being able to access that area.
He's talking about the small loft over the lodge area,
Over the living room part of the lodge.
living area,
Yeah.
okay.
As opposed to the part that's kind of over the bathroom. The first part when you walk up the stairs. That's where you could read or watch a TV or something.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Mark speaking. Could you go over with me again, when you originally applied for the permit to build this building, what was your intention at that time in
Our intention and what we use it for was basically a lodge where people could come and share a meal, do some cooking, gather, play games, puzzles, what have you. We, well, we're talking about that side. Well, no. I don't need to wait for that. But, you know, to warm up when it's cool, we got, heat in there. And use it for that, and then the other side would be storage in the garage side, the big garage door area, and the third floor, basically storage was the plan.
So am I mistaken in saying, my understanding was that it was I thought the intention was to be built as a garage with an accessory storage area.
On the variance, it says personal entertainment.
Not on the variance, on the permit that you applied for, the building permit?
I don't know about the permit. I mean, the permit is just part and parcel of what the variance allows, correct? If the variance says X and it's approved, the permit would be for that purpose, correct? I don't know how, he didn't ask
Erica,
for anything to spell out anything
Yep.
differently.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking for the permit application to open that up for you, Mark.
okay.
As I was choosing a variance to build a new house and to build a garage with storage area.
A garage with storage area. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a detached garage with a bump out. I guess what I'm asking is I'm trying to just get to the gist of this is what you have there, what we were led to believe was the intended use of the building.
Right.
New building type garage, detached garage, 24. So I guess my thinking on it is that the living area that's now, it's almost, to me now, one could say is really a cabin, a lodge, whatever you want to call it, with an attached garage. But that isn't what I think you applied for here. And so that's why I was trying to get to what your take on it was, if you think that this was, what you have here is what your intent was, because it doesn't seem to me that it is. So I'm trying to, this
Well,
is
I
the
would-
elephant in the room that I'm trying to
Wonderful.
get to the heart of here.
Okay.
And your feeling is this is what you were intending all along?
Yes, and here's my understanding of it, is we went to the variance meeting, the variance information is all fully there, what the intention was, and no one here is denying or arguing that on the variance it says for a 20 by 32 garage, or, I think hold on, I got it right here. It says 28 by 32 shop area with a 24 by 24 16-foot personal entertaining use and storage. So, that's what we talked about. It was approved, so when I went, I don't know if I went the next day or thereafter, and I spoke to Eric about it.
Did the variance or permit say a meeting area as opposed to just storage?
Well, the variance says,
The permit's on the screen, Ken, and
yeah, permit's on the screen.
I'm,
The permit, is on the screen here for what
yeah,
they were
but that,
approved for.
but that bump out,
That's the
it doesn't
personal
say anything in the
entertainment.
building permit, but the actual variance
Right.
It's on there.
application,
Yeah, it's on there. Do you want the
or verbiage
page for it?
Yeah.
was that it was storage.
This is Veronica speaking, if you don't mind me interceding.
Go ahead, Veronica.
Is
Okay.
personal entertainment does not give you justification for living quarters.
Of course.
So
Of course,
that's
I'm
where.
not saying that, and we're,
But that is what you built. That is what you, in my opinion, I'm going to argue this one because, yes, your variance application in a small blurb said personal entertainment. In my opinion, personal entertainment might be a table and chairs sitting inside a garage floor to listen to music. Personal entertainment does not mean living quarters with
I
multiple
agree.
bedrooms, a kitchen, a refrigerator, a dining table, so on and so forth. What your request was, that was in your application for your garage, stated you needed storage, additional storage for 20 RV unit site and 6 cabins. That was, and a personal RV, a personal watercraft stuff, and so on and
Yep,
so
and
forth.
the big
That
garage.
was stated, because that is part of the information that is submitted for you. So that, I will agree with you on that part. But just because you stated you wanted personal entertainment is not defined as living quarters.
oh, I understand, and I'm not saying that, and you're asking me
So-
what my intention was, and I'm just trying to answer that.
Yeah.
And my intention was, when I said personal entertaining use, is to use it as a lodge, as people entertaining, having a meal,
Well,
playing cards. You know, I
Unfortunately,
didn't know
that
there was a
information
restriction.
was not provided at the variance that you did previously. You did not verbally explain to the board, well, hey, I would like to have an additional bedroom. I'm going to do
I
3
didn't-
bedrooms.
I'm not saying
Personal
that.
entertainment does not equal living quarters and
I am
bedroom.
not saying that. I never intended to have a living quarters up there, and I think that's very clear. You keep saying that, but I
Okay.
don't agree with that. That was not our intention.
Okay, but so describe to me, sir, then please, what you think personal entertainment means.
Would be what we put in there on the
But you
downs.
just said that's not what you put in there, so you're contradicting yourself.
Oh, I see. So let me be more clear about that. I understand what you're saying. So what my definition is, that what we put in there is some cabinets and water to do a little cooking prep and to share meals, to have a place to play games and puzzles and read and what have you. Our cabins are tiny. You know, there's no closets, there's no big kitchen areas, they're cabins, which I understand. I mean, that's the way it is, and that's what I bought.
Right.
I have no
Well-
problem with that. And so if we didn't have a good discussion about what my intention was at that first variance, I didn't know that we had to talk in depth about every single thing. I just put this on there. No one questioned it or asked me about it. And that's what my intention was, or my thought.
Yeah.
I just don't know that you thought differently.
Well, this
You
is
know.
Veronica speaking. Unfortunately, because we are going by what is listed in your application from your first variance application that strictly
too.
says, again, I do have it here in front of me, that your exact intentions that we have gathered from the findings here is that the garage will provide the required storage and shop area for personal use for my ATVs, my personal RV, my personal boat, etc., and to upkeep existing seasonal dwellings and campground. Because currently there's no storage on the site except for the small 8-foot room. you cannot expect anybody, or again, the definition for the personal use entertaining does not mean living quarters for what you did. You described you wanted a garage with storage for your campground and your cabins. That is not what you built. Just wanted to clarify, that is
Yeah,
not,
so you're saying, when we talked, you're saying, I don't have the minutes in front of me, I have it somewhere. You're saying,
Veronica, could I,
Go ahead, Ken.
he's contending, his intention was that storage area, so to speak, could be made into an entertainment. The real issue is the creeping elegance that went with stairs, loft, and bedrooms. Now, if I squinted and said that steps wasn't there and there were no rooms above, would his view of what he was proposing, would we be sitting there saying, well, yeah, okay, that's fine, that entertainment area? No sleeping quarters, no living quarters, but sufficient elements to, get out of the rain, so to speak, if it were not for the balcony? Or would you still be saying, wait a minute, time out, there was never any discussion about entertainment, and it was to be storage, period, end of speech, and this is way over the hill?
Ken, I do have a response to that, is, to my knowledge, based on the application that the application that the applicant submitted, along with the minutes from that meeting, which are public and you can review the record, that the applicant was not giving the other Board of Adjustment the proper, full information. That the Board of Adjustment approved that information that the applicant submitted, that there was no indication that there was going to be any living quarters whatsoever in this application, in his variance, and I'm going just based on that, what the Board of Adjustment approved then.
Okay, this is Mark. I'm going to interrupt us for a second. I'm going to open this for public comment. Public comment. I'll close public comment. Okay, we can resume this then. I think that's the way, this is Mark again, that's the way I feel, Tom, about this, is that, and I think everybody on the board here would agree that one of our least favorite positions to be in is to try to make a motion of some sort on an after the fact, as opposed to being, having done this, we'll call it the right way up front, then we might have a different view, but it kind of puts us behind the 8 ball and how we deal with this. That's the difficult part. Language sometimes can get in the way, but an entertainment area is, I think, a little bit vague. It can be vague, and it seems to myself, and I think Veronica would concur, that we've gone way beyond that, and now we're here trying to deal with it, which is not the position we like to be in. So if you can understand that.
no, I appreciate it. I mean, I respect differences of opinion and definitions and terminology. I mean, of course.
Right. Any other comments by our board here, Ken?
Well, I was just going to say that I clearly am on Veronica's side, is like, I do believe we were misled, and the creeping elegance got way out of control. But when I was thinking about this, is saying, all right, if we deny it, then I look at question 6 in our after the facts thing that says, is the benefit to the county such that we should, I can't remember the exact words, does the benefit to the county outweigh the impact of the cost and implication of making him completely tear out everything that's there?
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, Eric.
Just as a quick clarification for the board, that sixth question in the additional findings, you would only entertain that question if you first answered all 5 questions affirmatively.
Yeah,
So that would only be a factor in a motion to approve.
yeah.
You would not need to entertain that question on a motion to deny.
Right, okay, understood, but it's still, it sits back there as a thought process for us to say is like, when you look at that, is it unreasonable? What I'm coming from is that, all right, deny it, sorry, you gotta go do it, as opposed to say, wait a minute, the thing we're trying to protect is the density and the capability of the septic system. And I've been thinking, if we allowed it only to be a lodge entertainment area, completely, take out the loft area he's suggesting taking out, and that the other 2 rooms up there cannot be used as sleeping quarters, and that in fact this thing would only be a lodge entertaining area, would that be a reasonable compromise? Just a thought, that's all I'm bringing up. Because from my personal standpoint, it's not unreasonable for a campground resort to have a lodge, a community area for people to go to, which he doesn't have. And so I'm thinking in that realm, is there,
Okay.
well, I'm
this is-
thinking out loud on it as such, okay.
Okay, this is Mark. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong here, but my inclination is this, that if the board were inclined to deny this, any corrective actions are up to you and county attorneys. I mean, we don't have to involve ourselves in any way with that. Is that correct?
Correct, and those options, as shared with the board in the staff report, were communicated to the applicant by county's council.
Okay, so, Ken, that's my inclination is, I'm really not concerning myself personally with what would happen if we were to deny it. I think that's beyond our purview. That's my own feeling on it. As to what we do here, it's just to whether we either decide to approve this or deny it, and if it's denied, then, it's out of our hands. Either way, it's out of our hands, but,
And I understand what you're saying, but when I look at it, that would mean that in the next 3 months, he'd have to completely gut that. He'd have to make sure the cabin decks 5 and 6 were corrected, RV sites 10 and 16 corrected, all those other variants, he'd have to have all that done before he could apply for a permit for his house, which would be void the 1st of May if we invoke a complete denial as we just said. I'm just trying to be reasonable about it, but we can back up and say, hey,
okay. Veronica, you got a comment?
Yeah, this is Veronica. I am going to back it up if you don't mind for a minute.
Yep.
Creating living quarters in the garage and expanding and increasing the dwelling unit density was not the intent of the Board of Adjustment at that time in 2018 and of October. Granting the variance 37 V18 for the expansion of a non-conforming use was lined out in the findings of facts based on the application that you submitted. When you signed the variance application, you certified that the information contained in the application was true, accurate, and complete representation of the facts and conditions concerning that application. It is possible and likely, had you given the information that you're talking about now, whether that you wanted to build this entertaining area, had you been a little bit more depth, then that might have been viewed differently in the regards to increasing the density with the additional living quarters in the garage, might have had a different outcome. Historically, the Board of Adjustment leans towards decreasing the density to keep in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the official controls. So your variance request was for an accessory structure for storage and replacement of a four-season home. So I do appreciate your mitigating off efforts to reduce the dwelling unit density by giving up the RV sites 6, 11, and 19. But the efforts that you'd made and described, to the living quarters inside the garage and house are minimal for me, as I greatly see living quarter material
Oh, I'm sorry, I
still.
didn't understand what you said. Say
The-
that last sentence.
The efforts that the garage and home efforts for me are minimal. Reducing the loft, reducing what's above the garage, area, to me, those are minimal. Because game rooms and sitting areas are still living quarters. Just removing the mattresses and frames and such, are still living quarters for me. So I am in favor of you removing all of the living quarters inside the newly built garage, return it to its original approved variance, and as it strictly was an accessory structure to begin with no living quarters. And saving those items for construction of your new home. A lot of those things you can take out. You can keep the cabinets, you can keep the sink, you can keep all of the amenities that you put in there for the construction of your new home. So those items won't be discarded. They do have a purpose, or they could have a purpose then to use. So I have considered your information there too, when I was, retaining all this information. I understand the timeline as well. I've gone through the timeline. I've had the whole timeline I've got everything lined up. But again, yes, he does have some work ahead of him if this gets denied, and to meet that 5-year sunset for that house, permit. But at this time, I'm not in favor of approving the application.
I'm curious about one question. Is it appropriate?
You may.
Yep, go ahead.
When you say we're relating this back to the house now, when we had the variance last meeting, when that variance was approved, but there was a condition that we had to correct any violations on the property, otherwise that variance would be null and void, or whatever the word would be. I don't see how any relationship goes back to the original variance that we've been approved, how that would stop that.
Can we let, yeah.
Eric, would you like to comment on that?
I haven't read anything about that.
Sure, Eric speaking. I was meaning to clarify and correct Ken's understanding, which isn't correct in regard to
Would you say is or isn't?
is not.
Is not.
In regard to the 30 by 70 house that was also approved in that 2018 variance, the May deadline that was applied to the after the fact variance from last year specified all existing violations had to be corrected by May 1 of this year, or that variance is void. It has nothing to do with that 2018 variance allowing the house construction. Relative to the house, what would influence its ability to be permitted would be if there's any outstanding violations on the property at the time a permit application would be submitted. We would not be able to issue the permit. So he has until roughly October of this year to get that permit and commence construction, assuming he gets all the violations on the property rectified in order for that permit to be issued.
Which I need to do by May 1st anyways to get the variance to be approved,
All he needed is
the existing one.
He can't get that permit until he corrects his violation.
I'm sorry, I was listening to two conversations. I didn't.
Sorry. Okay. Did we interrupt something? You want to restate that?
Oh, no, it's fine.
Okay. I think I understand what you were saying, Eric. Okay,
I was just saying that we need to get the violations corrected for the variance that we were approved last year by May 1st, which I think is doable on the decks are done on the cabins. The decks on the RV site is not huge. Tearing out of the lodge is much different, of course, but.
This is Veronica speaking. I do have one more comment, if you don't mind, that does pertain to some timing issues
Okay.
with this application as well. So according to the Environmental Services Office's documentation, which is available for anybody, the timeline paperwork that we had, the applicant had contacted ESO, and was informed that the resort use of any changes to the property is non-conforming. Any changes to this non-conforming use, specifically that adding new structures or modifications, any existing structures would thus require variance approval before any permits could be pulled. So again, before the variance was even pulled for 37-V-18 in 2018, the applicant knew, because he had a verbal discussion, plus he had the variance that he submitted, that no living quarters or any expansion was available at that time unless it was granted by a variance. So that, I believe unfortunately that there was plenty of information involved and given. So,
Okay.
I don't understand that. What do you,
you don't understand that, and you spoke directly with the Environmental Services Office back in 2018, before the variance was even submitted.
Okay.
And the Environmental Services Office explained to you that any expansion, whether it be a new construction or changing the existing buildings, the insides of the existing buildings, for the garage sort of thing,
Yep.
you have to have a variance to be approved. I can state it
right, and that's why
exact- I mean, you knew that information prior to 2018. That information was given to you.
that's why I got a variance. I don't,
But that's what I'm just saying. So again, you knew that you couldn't do this expansion for the garage at that time, before the variance. The expansion as far as the living quarters, the inside, the
Oh, of course.
increasing the dwelling unit.
of course, I'm
Okay.
not denying that ever, that I had no intention of making that a living quarters, and it only creeped to a living quarters,
Okay.
over time, like we were saying.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody on the board ready to make a motion on this? Questions?
This is Veronica. If there's no other comments or questions, I'm open to making a motion.
Okay, I'm gonna let you do that, Veronica.
This is Veronica. I make a motion to deny the application as presented, the after-the-fact variance application. I have proposed findings of facts for denying. Number one, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls? No. Variance 37-V-18 for a proposed expansion of a non-conforming use was granted based on the information submitted in the application, requesting construction of a year-round home and an accessory structure for the sole purpose of a detached garage to meet the storage needs to operate a 20-unit RV campground and 6 cabins. Approving the after-fact variance, allowing the structure to remain as a dwelling unit that was not intended, or that was intended as storage is not, I'm sorry, let me back this up. Approving the after-the-fact variance and allowing the structure to remain as a dwelling unit that was intended as storage is not in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Number two, is the owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the official controls? Yes. Although the accessory structure granted in variance 37-V-18 was not intended for use with living quarters, the proposal to remove the RV sites 6, 11, and 19, along with removing the 8 by 11 by 6 loft area of the living room and discontinuing the use of the second floor space above the attached garage as living quarters in exchange to retain the 23 by 23 living area is a reasonable use. Number three, is the need for the variance due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the current and prior property owner? No. The property is a legal non-conforming use for which the applicant sought and granted a variance 37-V-18 to expand in October of 2018, requesting to replace the four-season home, the home to a four-season year-round residence and accessory structure to meet the storage needs of the 20-unit RV campground, 6 cabins. In lieu of an accessory structure, the property owner constructed a house with kitchen, dining area, living area, full bath, and attached garage on ground level with 4 second-story bedrooms. Number 4, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes, the property has been in a resort use for several decades. Surrounding properties are largely low-density year-round residential lots on 7 acres to 15 acres in size. Again, with like number 2, the mitigation terms of giving up some of the area, the site 6, 11, and 19 is also part of being the character of the locality. Number 5, does the practical difficulty involve more than just the economics considerations? Yes, economics were not cited in the application as a difficulty. The difficulty is due to the use being nonconforming. The ordinance does not allow nonconforming uses to expand, which includes alterations to structures and increasing density unit capacities, and by conversion of a structure, authorized an accessory structure. I have compelled add-ons to substantiate the opposed motion for the after-the-fact variance. Eric, can I continue with those, or is there a need since the others have been met? Would it be beneficial to continue with those?
As far as the 6 additional questions, I don't think that they're necessary. I mean, you could certainly give those as additional reasons to support your motion if you wanted to.
Okay,
You're welcome to if you want to, Veronica, otherwise.
sure, I would not mind. I'll go forward with them. Number 1, why did the applicant fail to obtain the required permit or comply with the official control before commencing the work? Was there any attempt to comply with the applicable controls? The applicant obtained the land use permit 61063 in May of 2019 for an accessory structure, solely for which the detached garage was to be constructed. Instead, the applicant constructed a house. The structure was knowingly built in violation, and the applicant did not comply with the official controls. Number 2, did the applicant make a substantial investment in the property before learning of the failure to comply with the applicable controls? No, the applicant was aware of the applicable controls in August of 2018 when the Environmental Services Department was contacted and instructed the applicant to seek a variance for the requested expansion of the legal non-conforming use. The variance was granted for building a year-round residence and detached accessory structure. The applicant issued a land use permit over 6 months later to construct the detached garage. The applicant stated his or her request in the variance application for both the residence and the detached garage and chose not to comply and knowingly built the structure with intentions other than just storage request. The applicant was knowingly in violation, and this action was apparent when the Board of Adjustment requested a compliance inspection of the interior and numerous excuses were given about such entry. Number 3, did the applicant complete the work before being informed of the violation of applicable controls? Yes, the Environmental Service Department and Board of Adjustment visited the property for variance 20-V-22 on August of 2022 and inspected the interior of the garage, and the interior garage storage was found to be completed. A complete house. Number 4, are there structures, circumstances, or conditions in the area similar to those that are the subject of the variance request? No. Again, this property has been a resort use for many decades. Surrounding property is largely low-dense, year-round residential uses on lots ranging from 1 to 15-plus acres. Number 5, based on all the facts, does it appear to the Board of Adjustment that the applicant acted in good faith? No, the applicant has owned the property since 2018 and was aware of the shoreland management ordinances, as the applicant has obtained permits from 2018 to the present, along with other variance applications and numerous violations prior to this particular after-the-fact variance application, which implies the applicant has no regard to the official controls of the shoreland management ordinance and did not act in good faith. Number 6, would the benefit to the county appear to be outweighed by the detriment of the applicant, would suffer if forced to remove? Yes, it will be outweighed, as the applicant has stated in this meeting that his intentions to construct the year-round residence that was approved in 2018 for the variance 37V18. Since construction is not yet began, the applicant can utilize most materials used to create the living quarters from the garage and storage in the year-round residential structure he intends to build. Living quarter materials can be utilized for future construction. That's all I have.
Okay, Veronica made that motion with the accompanying findings. This is Mark, I'll second the motion. We'll take a vote. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye to deny the application.
Okay. Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye. The application is denied. You can be in touch with Eric's office for a letter and any follow-up, corrective actions, all that type of thing would be taken care of with him. Thank you.
Yep, understood.
Okay, Eric, do we have any miscellaneous?
Just a couple things. The first would be in terms of the February meeting agenda. We do have a couple items that have been submitted thus far. The deadline for applications is next Monday, so we've got another week yet for applications to come in. So I know of, excuse me, again, another 2 or 3 more than likely that will be submitted. And then the other item that I had that I shared with the board earlier today through email was just information about an upcoming land use training that will take place in Staples on Friday, March 3rd. And so I've heard from Ken, and the others of you can let me know if you're able to
Okay.
attend so that I can get registrations submitted. But that would be the other item that I had.
And Eric, you said there would be another one in the fall? If,
Typically, if they stick to past practice, yes, there would be another one in, I believe October is when it usually takes place.
okay, okay. Anything else on our minds before I make a motion to adjourn here?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Ken?
This is Veronica, I second the motion.
Okay, Ken, how do you vote?
I vote to adjourn.
Veronica, how do you vote?
I vote aye to adjourn.
This is Mark, I vote aye to adjourn. Meeting's adjourned.